Top 5 wide receivers are a fun topic, especially when we're digging for wide receivers that are not inside really anybody's top 5, and we start ruffling feathers by saying, I think Ridley could be a top 5 wide receiver.
How's that settle with you, Bob?
Garrett Wilson, Ridley, Olave, all could be top 5 wide receivers. While I don't believe all 3 of them will fit into the top 5, I'm not a moron. Every one of these guys has the potential to be a top 1 to 5 wide receiver in 2023. I've got Jamar Chase and JJ 1 and 2. Do not get me wrong. But I think what I'm trying to tell you here, in a perfect world, one of these guys, maybe 2 of them, could be in the top 5 or at least top 6 at the end of the year in 2023. And one of them, probably this man right here, could be number 3 overall. You heard me.
Buckle up.
Garrett Wilson, Ridley, Olave, the Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show.
All right, it's very important to understand what I'm saying here. I already prefaced that I'm not trying to suggest that all 3 of these guys will for sure be in the top 5 wide receivers at the end of the year. And I'm not saying take Garrett Wilson over Jamar Chase or JJ. But if maybe injury is the reason why maybe one of those guys, knock on wood, isn't in the top 1 to 2 wide receivers. In a weird, crazy world, this is the guy. If I had to pick a non-JJ, non-Jamar Chase player to be the number 1 wide receiver in 2023 fantasy football, it would be Garrett Wilson. And I think that was shocking weeks and weeks and weeks ago, months ago, especially months ago. But now people are starting to really understand what we've been talking about, what we've been hammering home all off season long, that this kid is on a whole nother level when you add Aaron Rodgers to the equation. These 2 guys right here are on a whole nother level anyway. We have the Moon Men list. You guys know the Moon Men list by now.
The Moon Men, dropping loads in outer space.
You guys know this list by now. We've got Olave, Wilson, Watson, London, Pickens, Dotson, Ridley. These are the wide receiver monsters in 2023. And some of these younger guys, they exploded last year. But Dotson he didn't have 1,000 yards. He had moments. Watson didn't have 1,000 yards. He had his moments. These 2 gentlemen had 1,000 yards in bad quarterback situations, and they're on a whole nother level in 2023 because he's got Derek Carr, and we'll get to Olave in a minute. And this guy's got Aaron Rodgers, who is throwing missiles on the field all offseason, and this guy's catching everything thrown his way. And that amazing Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson touchdown pass in the preseason just yesterday, their final little taste of what is to come. It's the proof you need that Aaron Rodgers is going to laser lock on him like he did Devontae Adams and so many other wide receivers. Wilson had 1,000 yards with a rotation of garbage quarterback play in 2022. Imagine what he'll do with Aaron Rodgers. Again, am I telling you to take him number 3 overall in your fantasy football draft because you want to go wide receiver and Jamar Chase and JJ are gone? I'm not suggesting you be an over-eager beaver and go ruin the ability of having all the upside in the world that this guy provides you when you draft him at the tail end of round 1. Truth be told, you get him in round 2. In most drafts right now. He is a 14, 13 overall player, and the most pushback I get from a top 5 touted player by me is Garrett Wilson. I can't tell you how many times we go into a live stream, we say Garrett Wilson to the moon. I play the little Garrett Wilson videos, and we get 4, 5, 6 people, oh, that's amazing. Then another 10 that are like, yeah, I'm getting on board. And then you get the one negative Noah that says, first rounder. He's not a first rounder. What do you mean, Garrett Wilson, a little early in the first round? Aren't you banking on that a little too much there, Smitty? There are a bunch of negative people out there trying to push down his value, maybe so they can draft him. I don't know. But Garrett Wilson is climbing up draft boards every time he shows out. And he shows out every time he hits the field. Every time he's in practice, every time he's in a game, that touchdown reception might have done the trick. We may not see Garrett Wilson fall into the 14, 15 overall territory anymore. He might be locked into 10, 11, 12, even in leagues where people were kind of like, I'm cautiously optimistic about Garrett Wilson. I don't know that we're going to see that anymore. Anybody paying attention at all knows this kid is on the rise to top 5 wide receiver numbers. And if you say to me, Smitty, this isn't that bold of a video, why are you even talking about this? We love Garrett Wilson. He's in the top 5. He's not in the top 5. On Underdog Fantasy, promo code Smitty, they'll match your deposit up to $100 on your first deposit. So this is where we draft. This is how we draft. If you want to draft with me on Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, make sure you hit the link in the description and use code Smitty. The link inserts code Smitty for you. But on Underdog Fantasy, promo code Smitty, look where Garrett Wilson is. Garrett Wilson is wide receiver 9. In best ball, mind you, where I think the fantasy football circles are higher on him than in non-best ball. Garrett Wilson and Amon-Ra St. Brown both go a little higher in best ball. Very wide receiver oriented in best ball. And Garrett Wilson's going this late. Wide receiver number 9. Not only can he double in value at number 12 overall, when people say you're drafting a player at their ceiling in round number 1. No, you're not. You're not. Even Bijan at number 1 overall isn't necessarily drafting him at his ceiling. Ask LaDainian Tomlinson owners and Marshall Faulk owners if they were maxing out their value when they took those guys back in the day at number 1 overall. It's almost like a -5 ADP. Bijan Robinson might in hindsight be worth way more than the number 1 overall pick. That's the way it works. When you're head and shoulders above everybody else, you don't just have your ADP value. It is sometimes a lights out, game over advantage to get the number 1 overall pick, and that's where I see Bijan performing in 2023, and of course in 2024 and beyond in Dynasty, he'll be the number 1 overall pick. Bijan's gonna have such a big year, his rookie year. The people that think he's a little high ranking at 3, 4, 5 overall, especially running back 1 overall, people think I'm nuts having him over Christian McCaffrey. Those people will come back around and say Bijan number 1, and he doesn't have a ceiling. He's a -5 ADP if you could even breach into that territory. That's how good Bijan is at number 1. Same concept here. Number 9 overall. Oh, Smitty, he can't double in value. Yeah, he can. He can climb all the way up this entire wide receiver list. Again, if injury struck JJ or Jamar Chase or both of them, or maybe they had a down year, maybe Kirk Cousins gets hurt, or maybe something else happens. Maybe Joe Burrow gets abducted safely by aliens and returns safely and he's healthy in weeks 2, 3, 4, 5. You never know what can happen. Let's not pretend Garrett Wilson or one of these guys, you can pick your guy, one of these guys, Garrett Wilson's mind can't climb all the way up and be the surprise of 2023 fantasy football. Garrett Wilson, dare I say, is a steal. One of the biggest steals in fantasy football at the bottom of round 1. You can look at me with a weird face all you want. I don't care. Garrett Wilson's going to prove you wrong, and I've got video footage to prove it.
Come on, man. Pick up.
Please leave your message after the tone.
Hey man, it's Devontae Adams again. Call me back, bro.
In your eyes, the light that hit your eyes, incomplete, your eyes.
Your eyes.
Garrett Wilson and the boys.
Your eyes.
Rogers has new toys.
Your eyes.
The lights, the heat.
Your
The
eyes.
Jets fan complete.
Your eyes.
You don't want to test Sauce Gardner's heat.
Your eyes.
I want to watch Brees Hall's quick feet.
Jets country, let's ride. Doubting Garrett Wilson will only lead to pain. It'll only lead to regret. You'll only wish you had got on board and stopped being a double down Donnie for whatever reason, whether it's against the Jets. The Jets are the Jets. They're going to potentially be Super Bowl contenders. Oh, Smitty, that's completely crazy. Enjoy. Stop being a double down Donnie, whether it's against Aaron Rodgers or against the Jets or whatever. Garrett Wilson is not just a moon man. He's a Mars man.
He's on a shuttle to Mars. Mars men.
He's been on this Mars men list from almost the beginning of the offseason. He's been one of the leading captains, and it's only going to go up from here, ladies and gentlemen. Ranking number 12 out of all wide receivers in 2023 on Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Smitty. Again, use the link in the description of this video, which will insert code Smitty for you. They'll match up to $100 in your first deposit. Wide receiver number 12. Sometimes in round 3 on ESPN and Yahoo. So you got to kind of know where you're drafting. So if you draft Olave in round number 2 on a platform where he ranks in round 3, you're leaving a lot of value on the table. This guy was number 1 in air yards when Winston was under center, beating everybody as a rookie
in air yards.
There is no better quarterback for this guy to get than Derek Carr, who did the same thing with Davante Adams, force-fed Davante Adams, laser-locked onto Davante Adams, much like Aaron Rodgers laser-locked on Davante Adams. This couldn't be a better marriage between Olave and Derek Carr. It would not be shocking one single bit if Olave took his 1,000 yards in 2022 as a rookie and turned it into 1,400 yards, 100 to 110 receptions, and 12 to 14 touchdowns. This guy is easily one of my favorite top 5 wide receivers that you get outside of the top 5 wide receivers, which is the point of this video. And again, he's ranking 12 on a very aggressive wide receiver ranking on Underdog for Olave, putting you in the driver's seat to win a league off his second, or hopefully in a Yahoo or ESPN draft, 3rd round draft selection. I don't take him higher than like 15 to 18. Garrett Wilson I would take inside the top 8 if I needed to. So between these two guys, Garrett Wilson's the far more likely candidate for me to be a top 1 to 5 wide receiver, but he's certainly in this conversation. He's certainly one of the 2nd round guys that could get into that top 5 wide receiver group. But if push comes to shove, I could take him in the top 8 overall. I could take him 15 to 18 overall. Big difference between the two. Love both of them. On that note,
a top 5 wide receiver hides among the people. His cost of entry is near illegal. Few see him coming. Many stay away. His name is Chris Olave.
Number 14 on the ADP rankings over at Underdog Fantasy. And join us again Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Use the link in the description. Code Smitty gets entered in for you just by using the link. Code Smitty will get you up to $100 on your first deposit. So go do it live. This is the last wide receiver that I feel very comfortable calling potentially a top 5 guy, and he's going at wide receiver 14. Now, granted, again, you like Garrett Wilson more, at least you should. You like Olave more than Ridley, but Ridley's pretty darn good. And he looks quick, electric. I know we're worried about him taking a lot of time off and being rusty, but he looks quicker than every wide receiver out there on the field in Jags practice and during camp. And there's a good reason to believe he's going to drop top 5 to 10 wide receiver numbers in 2023. One of the most exciting players to grab in round 3 if, let's say, Gibbs is gone. I do like Gibbs a little more, I'm not going to lie. But if Gibbs is gone and I'm looking at a bunch of other players that I don't really love, I'm not forcing position. I never force a position. I grab a player, and Ridley's a player I want on a lot of rosters. Maybe not every roster because there's some risk involved, but I want him in a ton of drafts walking into 2023 because I think he could drop 1,300 plus yards, 12 to 13 plus touchdowns, 90 to 105, we'll just call it, receptions. He could be electric. And the law dog Trevor Lawrence is going to spoon feed him. And if there's ever an approach where I want to go no running backs until round 3, so RB or Kelsey early, running back in round 2, or quarterback in round 2, maybe you go Kelsey Mahomes. This would be the wide receiver you get in round number 3 to kick off your wide receiver room and feel comfortable saying, I got a wide receiver 1. Maybe not everybody sees him coming, but he's a top 5 potential wide receiver, and his name's Calvin Ridley. And quite arguably, even though I take him at round 3, where I can, don't tell anybody, but I'd take him 18 to 24 if I had to. Wilson, Ridley, Olave, go get it done. Grab these monsters in your upcoming 2023 draft. These are the guys that can crack the top 5 wide receivers that people don't have ranked typically in their top 5. Now go get out of here. Oh, real quick. Don't think I forgot about St. Brown, or that St. Brown isn't in this mix, but he typically goes a little bit higher than these guys. And I could clearly throw him in the mix, but I decided to narrow it down to 3 guys that are really always outside the top 12 overall. St. Brown goes in round 1 a lot of the time. These guys are not going in round 1 on the regular right now. In our community, he does, but on the regular as a whole, these are outside of round number 1 guys, which is why St. Brown and CeeDee Lamb and even AJ Brown didn't make this list. But don't think for a second that St. Brown can't be a top 5 guy as well. I just want to throw that out there in case anybody's going to come in here and go, what about St. Brown, Smitty? You said St. Brown was the best guy you ever did for Smitty. I can't believe you're always talking about St. Brown.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show.